about fintech. Yes, right here. Minister, thank you so much for joining us. For everyone's awareness in the audience, we are keeping the minister incredibly busy this week. You joined us yesterday for the opening reception. We've just had you into an intense roundtable with the Unicorn Council and the International Forum. So thank you very much for taking the time to join us and for all you've done for the industry.
It's my pleasure. This is on, right? You guys can hear me at the back?
I can hear it, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, look, happy FinTech Week. That deserves a cheer. Come on, happy FinTech
Woo!
Week. Thank you very much. I was saying to those of you that were at the opening night drinks last night that I was so excited about FinTech Week. There's been a lot of anticipation in the Treasury about it. And when I woke up yesterday morning, I couldn't help myself but say to my children, I woke them up a bit early for school, and I said, kind of whispered like it was Christmas or Easter, happy FinTech Week. And they were, and I explained to my son what FinTech is, and about how, frankly, it is improving the lives of people right across this country, as well as providing jobs and growth. And my son genuinely said to me, every week should be FinTech Week. And yeah, but at this point, I actually said to him, I was like, has a woman called Janine been trying to talk to you? Because Janine, look, I want to start by saying that actually, thank you for everything that you do. And Innovate Finance, right? And Lou, who I can see sitting just there, everyone at Innovate Finance and all of your members as well, because you are genuinely driving this country forward, all of the wider economy, and as I said, the services that you're providing to consumers. So happy FinTech Week. It's a genuine pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. Well, Minister, I'd love to start out, because obviously you've come to know our sector very well since September. You've met with a lot of our members directly. What is it that excites you most about UK FinTech? I think you touched on some of that, but...
Yeah, look, I think I genuinely find FinTech incredibly exciting. I think it's the most exciting part of my brief, and I think you can make a pretty good case to say that it's the most exciting part of our wider economy at the moment. And why? Look, I think, I was thinking about this. I think actually it goes right to the heart of why I wanted to have a career in the city unfortunately for me, more than 20 years ago more than 20 years ago. I think it's because the sector, for me, it kind of has that disruptive energy, that relentless positivity, that rocket fuel of ambition and competition. It's all of those things, I think. It's all of those things that I feel very strongly about UK FinTech. And the more people that I talk to in this incredible sector, the more I realise that all of those feelings and characteristics, they characterise the individuals in this sector, and they characterise the sector as a whole. I think it's all of those things. And look, you know, the UK is the UK when it comes to financial services. We are so good at it because we have constantly embraced innovation. Every single step of the way, right back from kind of, you know, share trading in coffee houses not so far from here. We have built that success because we have embraced innovation. And FinTech is the next wave of innovation. It really is as simple as that. And we can talk, you know, I hope we do talk in more detail about some aspects, including digital assets. But I think this is the next wave, and we have to embrace it. I mean, Janine set out very well the reasons that we need to do that, and you heard from Rachel on the screen about some of the things that we're doing. And we want to go further, and we want to go faster.
Yeah. So let's build on that then, because there's been quite a few interesting and exciting announcements directly relating to a number of fintechs that are in the room here today, this morning. So could you tell us a bit more about these announcements and also your ambitions for the sector, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I really excited about. I won't go through many of the things which we have already done. You heard those from Rachel on the screen just now. Let me talk just a little bit about the things that we're announcing today, because much of this is about a direction of travel. So what we've done is we've set out today some of the further detail about how the government intends to support and modernise payment systems infrastructure. Now, and we're going to be publishing a consultation document on this really soon, so you'll see it there in black and white. But central to this is about bringing payments into the FSMA scheme of regulation, and therefore for both traditional payment methods and some of the newer payment methods, having that single coherent system of regulation, which we think is going to be, we hope is going to be very, very important. We'll get your feedback on that. As part of that, we're going to be regulating stablecoins for their use in payments. Again, I hope some people are nodding at me. Yeah, this is all good and very positive stuff. We're going to be asking for views as well about the right way to regulate agentic payments, because we recognize that there is a real, well, we recognize, frankly, and Lou's nodding like crazy at me down here, we recognize this is a massive growth area. The potential for efficiencies and for consumer benefits is huge, and we want to get it right. So we're going to be asking for views on that. And then importantly, when it comes to open banking, we're going to be giving the FCA powers to regulate the future of open banking. Now, we recognise, so I said we'll get that consultation document out there. In the meantime, what we have published, I believe it went live at 9:30. Laura? This is right? Yeah, it went live at 9:30. We published some legislation, which is going to be about cutting administrative burdens for companies wanting to provide stablecoin payments. So if you haven't yet seen that on gov.uk, please do it and get a look. Really excitingly, we have appointed Chris Woolard, CBE. Is Chris in the room? Maybe.
He was.
He was in the room.
Yeah. There he is.
A big wave from the back. So Chris is our new wholesale digital markets champion, and he's going to be leading a whole bunch of work in this space as we work towards that more efficient and competitive financial sector by building out the tokenized wholesale financial markets system. So Chris is going to be asking you for a lot of engagement and ideas over the coming weeks and months, and I'm sure you will engage with him. But Chris, we're absolutely delighted to have you on board. We're also today putting another £1 million into CFIT, the Centre for Finance, Innovation and Technology, to make sure that we're continuing to provide that thought leadership in that space. We're confirming today as well our plans to streamline regulation by ensuring that the PCR fits into the FCA. And so, look, for each of these things, which, as I said, there's more detail out there online, and we welcome your views on as we go forward. But for me, this is really about, Janine, it kind of goes to one of the things I know you're so hot on, which is like, what we're trying to do in this space is make sure that, as a government, we are coming forward with good public policy. And when, and this goes to the relationship, right, between government and business, when we as government are doing that, and that aligns, importantly, that aligns with business leadership, this is where really, really good things happen. So please engage. We've got some officials here today. As I said, Chris is right there at the back. Continue to engage with all the things that we're putting out there, and continue to feedback on everything we're doing as government, because, as I said, we are very, very, very keen to get this right, as keen as you are for us to get it right.
Fantastic. Minister, thank you for those announcements as well. So it's great to see some progress and great to see some pace. We're really, really pleased on that. I want to touch base on a topic that came up in some of the discussions this morning. So we know the government is taking action to ensure pension funds are supporting domestic growth and to also increase the capabilities of the British Business Bank. How do you see this addressing the funding gap that's faced by so many of our scaling and our high-growth fintech firms? Is there anything we can do, all of us, in terms of supporting our fintech founders to access the capital they need here in the UK?
No, this is a priority of the government, Janine. You and I have talked about it before, and I've talked in detail about it to some of the people that we've got in this room. I recognise how important this is. I recognise how important this is. Because when domestic pension schemes invest in domestic innovation, you get that dual benefit. So we get it. We get how important it is. And as I said, it's a priority. We're making reforms in this area that many of you in this room well know about. I'm not going to go through the detail of those, but I will say we are having a degree of success in this regard, and we recognise there's much more to do. Now, just as a small indicator of some of that success, many of you have talked to me about your interactions with the British Business Bank, and they have already risen to the challenge. They're crowding in pension scheme investment for some of our most promising companies. And earlier this month, they reached the 200 million mark, 200 million committed from DC pension funds for the British Growth Partnership. They've also launched the VentureLink website as well, as some of you may well be aware. The British Business Bank are doing other things in this space too, but as I said, not least from Janine, you referred to the discussions that we had earlier this morning, we recognise how important this is, and we recognise the dual benefit, as I said, that can be had. So this is a continuing priority.
Fantastic, good. And at the last budget, the ecosystem was really pleased in terms of talking about incentivizing entrepreneurs. We were really pleased to hear the Chancellor announce a consultation on tax support for entrepreneurs. I know that's in the process, but interested to hear if there are any early takeaways. What do you hope to achieve from that?
Early takeaway might be an invitation. Totally preempt that, which I'm not going to take. Sorry, I'm not going to take it. But look, I think, Janine, you're pointing to a kind of, you're pointing to a direction of travel, right? So at budget, the Chancellor she referred to some of this stuff, so she was able to put in place the listing holiday. So all reforms to our capital markets, which we hope are going to really, really strengthen and build on the historical success of our capital markets. So listing relief. There have also been reforms, as I'm sure most of you know, to the listing rules and the prospectus rules. We're strengthening private markets via PICES. But importantly as well, for many of you in this room, we expanded the eligibility for EMI and an EIS and VCT as well. Now, this consultation, Janine, that you referred to, as I said, this is about a direction of travel. And this is really, really important, because what we want to do is to further build on those things that I just referred to further strengthen our capital markets and further make sure that we are getting capital into some of the places where we really, really want it to be able to drive growth. And Janine, you and I have talked before about the importance of tax, right, in the entirety of this landscape. I totally recognise that it matters, and that it sends a message as well as being a sort of, a kind of hard thing around this eligibility, I should say, for schemes, etc. Totally understand that, and I hope you draw some positivity from the fact of there being a consultation.
Absolutely. Minister, I'm very conscious of your time, but if we can just essentially in closing, you touched a bit there on digital assets and stablecoin. Would love to hear from you about how we can establish really the UK as the global centre, and then just any thoughts on AI, because obviously we are quite keen the UK become the world leader in AI. We've heard the same messaging from government. So how you see this fintech ecosystem playing a role? Two for one for you there.
Yeah, indeed. And my thoughts on AI in 60 seconds, that's kind of tough. Look, I'll start with digital assets. Look, this is a huge strategic opportunity for the UK, but it's also, I see it not just as an opportunity, frankly, more of a necessity. This is the way that our financial markets are going, and we have to be at the forefront of this for all the reasons that I've already set out around, we get left behind unless we embrace innovation. Now, stablecoins specifically absolutely recognise that there are particular benefits that go with stablecoin, quicker and more efficient payments. And so often, actually, I catch myself saying that and not kind of following up as to what that actually means. From a business point of view, what does that mean? It means freeing up capital for other things. That is why it is so important. But from a retail point of view as well, we recognise that there is this gargantuan potential, and that kind of underlies some of the things that we're announcing today. And we see that there are particular benefits in having a thriving GBP stablecoin market, which underlies why we laid the legislation for the crypto assets regime, and conscious that there are still pieces of that puzzle that need to fit together, not least that the bank need to come forward with their rules for systemic stablecoin. The FCA are, I know, working with many of you in this room for the purposes of the authorization gateway opening later this year and the regime coming into force in October next year. But we're doing some stuff alongside that as well, because we recognise that the growth of stablecoin, including the recent T-bill consultation, because we recognise this sort of further source of demand for government debt. So we're piecing all of this together, and importantly, we're doing other things on the landscape with the issuing of the digital gilt, Digit. That program is well underway. Why is that important? Because we think it's going to catalyse the greater use of DLT in other areas as well. And this is something that Chris, our new champion, is going to be doing a great deal towards. But I come back to the importance of stablecoin, the fact of allowing for that interoperability between traditional financial services and stuff on the blockchain. So massive strategic opportunity for the UK. We are pushing forward this agenda at pace. I frequently receive feedback on this from some of you in this room. Candid feedback, I should say. So every now and again, an aggressive WhatsApp. I genuinely, and I don't say that, and I don't say that kind of disparagingly, I genuinely really, really welcome this. Why? Because, as I said at the outset, this is how we get to decent policy, right? It's this interaction between government and businesses getting us to where we need to be, and we couldn't be more ambitious in this space.
Fantastic. I think that's a great way to close the session. Please, everyone, join me in thanking the Minister for joining us. It's been great to hear from you, and we really welcome the announcements as well. Thank you.